How to reload a 22 long rifle and pretty much every other rimfire round is the easy way. Now, I originally had thought to make this a really long, drawn-out video, but I really haven't had time to show you how exactly to reload a 22 and go to the range and shoot them off, so I'm going to make a little graphical presentation. Basically, I want to point out before I go any farther, if you do anything stupid with a firearm, I'm not personally responsible. Okay, when you reload a 22 or any other rimfire round, there's certain inherent risks. You could run into hang fires, and you know the rules are you're really supposed to keep your barrel downrange for a minute when that happens. And if you don't have a hang fire, you can still get a squib load. Now, if a squib load, you're supposed to unload your firearm and clear your barrel of any obstructions. That's just basic gun safety. So, once again, I'm not responsible for any stupidness. But you can reload a rimfire round pretty easy. A lot of people say it's impossible because there's not really a primer. You can't just pop one off, put a new one in. The primer is actually built into the rim of the round. Well, you can actually reload a rimfire pretty easily. What you got to do is get yourself some used brass first. You got to inspect your brass, make sure it's not too chewed up. You want something you could chamber, and you're not going to have a problem, obviously with safety in your gun. So what you want to do is get yourself a little punch, and you're going to want to take that punch and kind of, open up the rim and the bottom of your rimfire round so you can fit a good amount of primer in it. You're going to want to clean it out, get rid of some dings and dents, and if you got any burnt nastiness in there, you're going to want to take that out too. So once you've got your brass in good shape, you're going to have to make a liquid primer, and it's actually really, really easy to make a liquid primer. What you got to do, go down to your supermarket and pick up some of those cap gun caps you used to play with as a little kid. What that basically is, it's Armstrong's mix. It's a flash powder. Now, you can get those plastic caps, those roll caps. You want to empty them all out, collect the powder, and you're going to have to mix it up into a slurry, some sort of a paste. What you're going to do is you're going to get yourself something like an isopropyl rubbing alcohol, preferably, something like a 91%. You're going to mix it in there, and you're good to go. Now, you could also use other things. I mean, if you're really desperate, you can't get, the cap gun caps, which makes things easy for you. You can use Strike Anywhere matches. You could take the heads of the Strike Anywhere matches, crush them up into a fine powder, and use that. Now, if you're really desperate, you can't find anything, go down to your supermarket and pick up the regular kitchen matches, the stuff you'd use to light up a stove. You're going to crush the heads again, and then you're going to scrape off all that coating that they put on the sides of the plastic, the cardboard container, and you're going to mix it together in a 50-50 ratio. What you want to do is you want to put it on a piece of paper and fold it into each other because if, just by mixing it up with like some sort of a tool, you can actually ignite it, and that goes all your powder. So you mix it very carefully, and regardless of any type of powder you have, like I said, you're going to have to turn it into some sort of a slurry, some sort of like a paste. So if you don't have isopropyl rubbing alcohol laying around, you could also use something like water. Now, water is going to be a good thing to use because it's not going to allow the flash powder to ignite. Now, it might have a slight negligible effect on the effectiveness of the powder, but it's a safe method. If you don't have, or if you don't want to use water, you could also use something like acetone, which is basically nail polish remover. Now, the reason why I use isopropyl rubbing alcohol, one, because it evaporates very, very quickly, so I don't have to wait as long and I don't have to worry about the wet primer. Now, another advantage of using isopropyl rubbing alcohol is that reportedly it does something to the powder. It makes it ignite better or flash stronger. I don't really know if there's any real chemistry behind that, but it could just be, once again, someone's opinion. But once again, once you have your slurry, your paste, what you want to do is put as much of it as you can into the base of your 22 long rifle round. You want to make sure you get a whole bunch between the cartridge and the rim. All right, put a whole bunch there and just let it sit. You're going to want to let it sit overnight, 24 hours, basically as long as you can so you know that it's completely dried and what you have in the bottom is something like a concrete or cement-like material. That's when you know you're ready to go. When you're ready to go, you want to put only 1 grain. That's all you need of a smokeless powder. Doesn't need to be a fancy high-powered powder at all. Just 1 grain of regular gunpowder is plenty of power you need. You don't need any more than that. It's a 22. Now, if you can't find smokeless powder, and it's easier just to get black powder, don't worry. The 22 long rifle round was originally intended to be a black powder round. You only really need 4 to 5 grains of black powder. That's more than enough power. You'll be ready to go. All right. Now, one of the side effects, though, using black powder, I want to point out is, you're going to get a little bit of smoke, and you're also going to have to probably clean out your barrel a little bit more, but you'll be good to go. Now, the real tricky part with reloading a 22 is making or getting a 22 bullet to put on top of the cartridge case. And there's very few 22 long rifle bullet molds out there. If you find them, usually they're sold out. So what you want to do is you want to make your own mold. And there's actually a pretty easy, cheap way to do this. Go down to your retail stores and get some of that oven-baked clay. The stuff you would use to make little toy pots and junk like that. You get the oven-baked clay, and you're going to need to get a 22 bullet to make a mold with. So find your favorite type of 22, take the bullet off the cartridge case. So this is a little bit tricky. You have to be very careful not to mangle up the bullet and also not to put too much pressure on the rim. You do that, you can set off the round, and that would be a bad day. So you take the bullet off, make sure you got it cleaned up good enough, and you're going to place it into the mold. You're going to want to make a two-piece mold, and you're going to want to put a little bit of like an olive oil or a cooking oil where you're putting the bullet, so this way you can extract it later. Basically follow the instructions on the oven-baked clay, cook it up really good, take the bullet out. You might want to let it sit in a dry, warm area for a little while to try to get any moisture out of it, and then you're good to go. Now you have your mold, and you could use it to make as much 22 bullets as you want. You could try using lead, but I mean, it's really easy if you're just going to go plinking, you know, close range at things like paper targets and aluminum cans, to make something like a hot glue bullet or a wax bullet. All right, with a hot glue bullet, you're going to get yourself a hot glue gun, preferably with a very high temperature hot glue. Put a little bit of oil once again into your mold, and just inject the hot glue directly into the mold. And ta-da, you got yourself a nice hot glue bullet. When it settles, you take it out, you clean it up, shape it up so it's good enough to use, and you're ready to go. Now, if you don't want to use hot glue, you could also use your standard paraffin canning wax, the stuff you use when you can, like, you know, fruits and vegetables. That works pretty good too. Now, once you have your bullets made, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to kind of seat them inside your cartridge case. This is tricky. A lot of times things don't fit right or they don't stay in. What you're going to have to do perhaps is, you know, get a little bit of lubricant. There's all different things you can use. If it's not too bad, you can use that powdered graphite stuff. Other times you might have to use some sort of real liquid lubricant. But you seat the bullet in its place, and if things get really bad, you know, you could use a little bit of like a super glue or some sort of light adhesive to hold things together. But now you have a little tiny cheap 22 bullet you could go shoot targets with at a close range. Now, if you're really desperate and you don't want to make a mold, well, don't worry. You don't need to go through the whole process of making a mold to reload 22s. What you need to do is you need to get yourself some of that paraffin cooking wax again, and just basically take a chunk of it so that the bullet won't be all that long, and just kind of shove a piece of that wax into the mouth of your cartridge case. So what you have now is a short length little wax cylinder actually inserted into the cartridge case, and you have a wax slug. You're good to go. For close range, shooting paper and aluminum cans, it's going to work fine. So this has basically just been a quick, cheap, easy way to reload 22s. If you're really desperate, you can't find a 22, you could always make one. You're good to go. Take care.